Moving on. Britain's crisis-hit Lloyds Banking Group says that it will axe 9,000 jobs over the next 3 years as a cost-cutting measure. The group has in a statement said that it plans to make further savings of $1.6 billion annually by the end of the period. It will also close about 150 branches during this time. The bank, which remains 25% owned by the British government, is cutting its workforce by about a tenth. It has already laid off tens of thousands of staff since the 2008 financial crisis. The troubled banking group just survived the crisis after receiving a multi-billion-dollar aid package from the state. Simon Dixon, author of Bank to the Future, joins us now. Maybe he can make some sense out of this. Simon Dixon, here you have a bank. I'm not too sure if this is one of the banks that actually failed the stress test, but it received this bailout money, and you're looking at the performance now in some sense with this fact that jobs have been cut. Why do you think this bank is performing the way it is?
Well, Lloyds Bank is performing the way that most banks are in Britain and UK. It's one of the major banks. It's one of the big four monopoly banks that has a lot of power and access to the clearing system in the UK. And I have less concern about the bank performing poorly, because that should just be a natural thing. The main concern is that it's 25% owned by the state and it's received multi-billion-pound bailouts, and yet at the same time as it laying off, we're unsure of what's actually happening with some of the executive bonuses, the salaries of highly paid investment bankers. And we're, and at the same time, we're seeing the lower level staff, the retail banking, the banking side that it was meant to be originally started with, doing mass layoffs. Now, the major concern is that we should be treating these banks exactly as a company that's poorly performing, laying off, and that's fine. But why we're actually bailing these banks out in the first place is the major problem. And at the very same time, the slap in the face is that the executives are still getting, salaries disproportionately above anyone else in the entire economy.
So who is overlooking these banks, in this case Lloyds Bank, when it comes to bonuses? October 20th in New York City, there was a closed-door meeting with the banks and Wall Street with police officers, basically telling the banks and Wall Street firms, you better get your act together. One of the issues discussed was bonuses. How do you control that?
Well, we're meant to have a regulator that overlooks the entire financial system in the UK. It seems that we have a regulator that has one rules for banks and one rules for other financial institutions. If you're an honest financial institution that doesn't have the large power of these large banks, then the threat of the regulators is very big. With the large banks, however, they seem to have a rule all to their own, and simply because they've been bestowed with this title of too big to fail, and they threaten the economy with actually going bankrupt and bust, they have a rule all to their own. So all the threats are empty threats, and therefore nothing that actually is bestowed upon them is taken as a serious threat, because they are not allowed to fail and they're always bailed out.
Very well. It's a pleasure talking to you. Simon Dixon, author of Bank to the Future there.